Act 2. Inspiration. Filoserve notice. The following document was inserted into this file at a later date, under Containment Protocol Herodotus. Refer to Special Containment Procedures for more information. Verse 56-60. As witnessed by Sodabirat, second Rajmata of the Scarlet Maharaja. The covenant was struck, and the king of the Scarlet House of the Deva took his wife and his throne and slept and dreamt a dream of a great city of stone and spire spanning vast farmlands and jungles, the seat of an empire that would truly please the Scarlet. At their emperor's behest and now able to take form on the material plane, the Deva of the Scarlet rode down from the trees on their six-winged thousand-legged beasts of burden and joined in celebrations with the tribe of their new suzerain, in hymnal and orgiastic worship to the great red power. Then the Deva, with their men-at-arms, grasped the stones and built a fortress to protect themselves, for now the Deva and the men were one in the eyes of the trees. They worked tirelessly and without cease for 3 nights and 3 days while MAMJUL, city for men, rose from the earth around the great tree of life. Then they climbed the trunk and branches of the tree, scaling it up to the heavens and back into the astral plane, whereupon they again began to work, constructing another city of star stuff and soul spirits given up to the cosmos after death. The leaves and fruits and flowers of the great tree formed the canopy for this KORAR, city for Deva, great beacon through the empty wandering wastes of the heavens, a perfect mirror of its sister below, with the Scarlet Maharaja resting in his dream, sustaining the empire, in the grand temple of the tree. The magic of the Deva was now man's to commend, and the battle mages and sorcerer Nawabs marched out under their scarlet banner to conquer fertile lands and the godless cities in the name of their king, assisted by the spirits lengths tall and able to tear a man in two with only a strike. The red wave swept across Asia from the south, demolishing all in its path, consuming the spirit of the enemy, taking prisoner slave and loot back to MAMJUL on the back of the great beasts of the covenant. Cities would lay down arms and accept the Scarlet Maharaja as their Chakravarti as his beasts and creatures brought down their walls, and the magicians would lay waste to their palaces and temples. The Scarlet Maharaja's bride, the Rajmata, would sit and rule in his stead, matriarch of the covenant, as he slept in the branches of the great tree. Long lived and beautiful and awesome, the lineage of queens would defend the city against all threats. And the city swelled with treasures and fine linens and foodstuffs across the vast Devic covenant, and the poets and artists and dancers and people of thought filled its buildings with the culture of the covenant. And when they died, their spirits would dance the dance of the cosmos, rising up the tree into KORAR to live the eternal song of the Deva. And the Deva would reside in their kingdom above, watching over the men they loved so. And it was in this way that MAMJUL became known as MAMJUL, Jewel of the South, and KORAR became the great tree kingdom of the cosmos. Section 1.3. MAMJUL Research. The first of several dives into the ruins of the city to recover artifacts and any information or records still remaining took place on the 6th of September, 2002. The submersible aboard the Lillehammer was outfitted with grab arms, spotlights, and a holding bay before being deployed. The submersible, designated Kala 1, was capable of both manned piloting by 2-3 crew members, or partial unmanned piloting by Calypso 8, one of the first Gen 13 artificial intelligence constructs produced at Site 7. For the first dive, partial unmanned operation was utilized. Addendum. Attached document. September 2002. Begin log. T1 o'clock. T003 final checks are performed, and the hull integrity of Kala 1 is affirmed alongside the operational capacity and function of all components and systems. Command for the mission is OPR. RJ Desai and Dr. Pandora Galanus, with Lieutenant Lucian Graves of MTFA-1 observing. T003, T000 hours. Kala 1 is craned out above the sea and released, dropping 7 meters into the water. All systems green. Mission commenced. T+001, T+022. Command orders KALA 1 to begin descending into the ocean. Over the next 22 minutes, the submersible drops a total of 3.6 kilometers into the depths of the Laccadive Sea. Sunlight quickly diminishes, and the floodlights aboard KALA 1 are activated. The submersible slows its descent after the peak of the citadel encountered by Khan comes into view. T+023, T+051. With the additional light from the floodlights, it is apparent that the section Khan explored was only a small part of the megastructure. The total structure is nearly 400 meters in height, and roughly cylindrical with a top circumference of 70 meters. From a distance, it is clear that the structure is indeed reminiscent of a tree stump. The base is too far to be seen by the sub's cameras, but the citadel slopes upward and grows thinner as it ascends, before abruptly cutting off. KALA 1 approaches closer to the exterior of the citadel. As Khan saw, the entire surface is covered in extensive carvings and reliefs depicting a variety of scenes and figures, some life-sized, including a depiction of the tree itself, which also recursively contains reliefs of the tree and scenes. T+052, T+109. KALA 1 revolves around the citadel for some time, taking digital images of the various carvings spreading across the rock-like surface and surrounding the embrasures. The carvings, particularly of the figures and animals, are remarkably realistic for being carved from wood. Many figures are clearly human, but many also display distinctly non-human qualities ranging from horns to animal snouts and limbs. Two figures recur frequently, and are depicted as nearly 3 or 4 times the height of the rest. One is a long-bearded man with an elaborate headdress, shown carrying long spears across his back and typically with eyes closed. The other is a gigantic androgynous entity with an obscured face, inset with gleaming red gemstones. They are almost always depicted together. T+110, T+121. At Dr. Galenus' command, KALA 1 extends one arm with a laser torch implement, and cuts off a small, 4 cm by 4 cm cube of the tree material before placing it inside itself. The process takes nearly 10 minutes. T+121, T+132. KALA 1 breaks off from the exterior, and ascends to the top of the citadel. After confirming the entrance hole revealed by Khan is spacious enough for the submersible to fit through, KALA 1 descends into the belly of the structure and activates its remaining floodlights. The camera reveals that the interior of the structure is intricately constructed. Landings, corridors, and doorways line the walls, presumably leading off to smaller rooms. The interior walls also contain carvings, but a smaller amount compared to the blanketing array on the exterior. The rubble of a spiral staircase can be seen far below through holes in various floors, confirming Khan's analysis that the spiral staircase collapsed and the falling debris smashed a vertical passage through the citadel. T+132, T+137, OPR. Desai complains of someone whispering in the command room. Lieutenant Graves attests that he hears it as well, but no other parties in the command room are speaking or report hearing any speaking. Dr. Galenus orders the mission to continue, noting down the anomaly and acquiescing to Lieutenant Graves ordering routine Hartwell-Pugh evaluation for himself and OPR. Desai against OPR. Desai's protests. The mission proceeds. T+149, T+153. KALA 1 arrives at the base of the citadel. While large, this section is still too small for the submersible to safely maneuver through. High ceilings are inlaid with a winding root and vine pattern. The far end of the room contains some kind of pedestal with a long object on it, but the visibility is poor. Beside it appears to be some kind of wooden throne. T+154, T+201. Kala 1 slowly turns towards the opposite direction. A large vomitorium extends out, light at the end signaling an exit. Slowly, the submersible turns and proceeds out through this long passage. Cameras along Kala 1 take snapshots of the walls of the passage and the carvings they depict. T+202, T+206. Kala 1 exits the archway of the citadel, the sudden light momentarily dampening the cameras. When visuals are recovered, the submersible is in the center of a large, wide avenue lined on all sides by large, stone-cut buildings and fortifications. The architecture of the buildings is heavily reminiscent of ancient South Asian architecture, with stacked terraced roofs and battlements of heavy stone. The street forks ahead, spreading out. From its angle, Kala 1 can see an entire section of the city of MAMJUL, collapsed under the weight of the ocean. T+207, T+246. The submersible drifts through the streets of MAMJUL, slowly mapping the area. The avenues are wide and broad, and the doorways and buildings throughout the city are strangely disproportionate to the average human body. The architecture throughout the city continues to resemble that of ancient Southeast Asian cultures, with towering shrines of stone and buildings with terraced temple roofs. However, the farther from the citadel, the less intact the buildings are. Many show signs of extreme disrepair and stress, particularly around the outer edges of the city's walls where they are practically piles of rubble. T+247, T+259. Kala 1 ascends and deploys a sonar mapper overhead to formulate a three-dimensional map of the city. From this height, it is clear that the city is contained within three triangular walls forming high ramparts, similar to Amoni Ram's circular Great Wall. However, MAMJUL is significantly larger in area than Amoni Ram was. T+3 o'clock, T+327. Kala 1 returns to the base of MAMJUL. Operators point out sites of stress and battle. While a large amount of buildings appear crushed by the intense pressure, there are scorch marks, explosion craters, and bleached skeletons littering the streets of large portions of the city. The amount of skeletons is particularly notable. Certain sections of the city are quite literally layered in dead bodies, many of which suggest a non-human skeleton structure. Samples of these bones are taken. T+328, T+336. Kala 1 passes a large building that appears relatively intact, and with an entrance large enough to maneuver the submersible through. OPR. Desai assumes manual control and pilots it through. The interior of the building is filled with toppled shelves and scattered skeletal remains, but one corner of the building contains a cache of ceramic chests and jars that appear to be water-sealed. A number of the smaller jars are recovered, but Dr. Galenus orders the larger ones be left behind for later recovery by coyote divers. T+337, T+357. Kala 1 reverses out of the structure, exiting back into the streets of the city. The submersible continues its exploration of the outer edges of the city, confirming the triangular shape of MAMJUL. T+357, T+358. OPR. Desai notes to Dr. Galenus that Kala 1's power reserves are at 32%. At his suggestion, Dr. Galenus orders Kala 1 to return to the Lillehammer. T+359, T+428. The submersible ascends to the Lillehammer, reaching the surface without incident. It is safely craned out of the water. End log. Following the arrival of Kala 1 and the analysis of onboard data, anomalies were detected in the audio recorded by the submersible's underwater microphones. The audio tracks were isolated and amplified, revealing a low-frequency buzzing of unknown origin from T+202 to when Kala 1 exited the ruins of MAMJUL. Tests of the microphones revealed no malfunction. Lieutenant Graves and Operator Desai both submitted to Hartwell Pugh evaluations following the conclusion of the dive mission and passed with adequate scores, indicating no present cognitohazardous influence. The samples recovered from the dive were analyzed on site in the clean labs aboard the Phantom before being transported to MKF-02 by helicopter for long-term study and, if necessary, containment. The large piece of the Citadel structure lasered off by KALA-1 confirmed that the substance comprising the structure is organic, similar in appearance to teak wood but heavily hardened and mineralized through a process resembling fossilization. The final product is a dark, knotted wood that is incredibly dense and hard, comparable to stone, while being entirely organically grown. The size and proportions of the 435-meter stump suggest that the full tree would have been nearly a kilometer high. The jars recovered by KALA-1 were, as suspected, sealed and made watertight through application of a thick, gum-like substance. Upon removal and opening of the jars, stone and clay tablets were discovered inside. However, the tablets were all completely featureless, lacking any kind of writing or marking. The significance of these tablets is as of yet unknown. The digital images recorded of the various carvings on the Citadel and throughout the city were disseminated for analysis among the research team. On the 12th of September, the research team had the first of several leadership meetings among the various research sectors. Addendum. Attached document, September 2002. Begin log. Galenus, good morning, everyone. Is that everyone, actually? Murmurs of assent from the assembled committee. Galenus, excellent. I've already met most of you, but I do see some new faces. About a third of you are from my research team, and the rest of you have been flown out especially for this project. Some of you are the best in your fields, and some of you are young and hungry. Either way, I personally appreciate you coming, and hope that we can really work well together. This is the project of a lifetime for me. I guess I'm rambling, aren't I? Galenus laughs, smoothing out their lab coat and placing the clipboard down on the table. Galenus, well, I'm Dr. Pandora V. Galenus, project lead. If all of you could introduce yourself as you speak, it certainly wouldn't go unappreciated. Hard time with attaching names to faces. This, of course, is my second in command, Operator R.J. Desai. Desai, hello, all. Sheridan Arch, Levi Sheridan, Head of Archaeology. Pleasure to be working with you, Ma'am. Galenus, nice to meet you, Levi, but not a ma'am. Sheridan Arch, right. I'm sorry. Galenus, you're fine. Glad to have you aboard. Yijin, Ling, Senior Researcher Xing Yijin, I'm heading the linguistic analysis team. I just wanted to ask, are we in danger? Galenus, what? Yijin points to the corner of the room. Galenus, oh. No, nothing like that. No, Lieutenant Graves and his unit are just here as observers. Greaves raises a hand. Greaves, pretend I'm not even here. Silence. Galenus, right, well, no sense in wasting any more time. It's been a few days since the KALA-1 dive, and since then we've confirmed that we're not getting any expressly anomalous readings from the city itself or any of the recovered material. The samples recovered are definitely odd and of significant interest to the project, but Hume levels are normal, HP evaluations after the dive were normal, pretty much all readings are normal. Abera, Anth. Dr. Carl Abera, Anthropology. Sorry, but we've barely explored the city yet, no? The submersible was only able to move through the largest, least damaged portions of the city. Yijin, Ling, there's so much still down there. Galenus, that's true. KALA-1 isn't able to get into the nooks and crannies of MAMJUL's buildings, or extensively explore the interior of the space. But, after conferring with the Council, and Lieutenant Graves, We have authorization to begin entering the city. A small cheer rings out through the conference room from those assembled. Ramaswamy hissed. That's amazing. I mean, it's amazing, but we're sure it's safe? Galenus, Vijay, right? From Parahistory. Yes, there's no reason to think that there's anything spooky down there, but I'd like everyone to be cautious regardless, you know? Even without anything anomalous, exploring those old degraded ruins can be dangerous at the best of times. I mean, look what happened to Dr. Nuss. Greaves, yes. Like Dr. Galenus said, there's nothing expressly anomalous, but it would do everyone well to be cautious. And keep in mind the context we're working with here. Galenus, thank you, Lieutenant. Well, all that said, I'd like to quickly go over our current pool of knowledge and get everyone on the same page. Just a quick refresher of where we're at right now in terms of knowledge on the Devic Covenant. These will be sent out in paper memos, of course. Just, you know, I find things easier explained if they are verbalized. I hope nobody minds. Murmurs of assent from the group. Galenus, okay. I'll start us off. Prior to discovering, stumbling across, really, MAMJUL, all our knowledge on the Devic Covenant, even the name itself, came from either the Aegean tablets or records recovered from the Amoni Ram initiative. The image they give is of some kind of caste-based Proto-Tamil Indian civilization, one that made exceptionally heavy use of life magic. The ancient Mekhanites wrote far less about the Devic Covenant than they did about the Nalka, but we did determine that they were hostile to one another. Mekhanite dogma was transhumanist, and the way they spoke of and referenced the Covenant suggests their religion and magic, which seem to be more concerned with the spirit and soul, conflicted easily. Ramaswamy hissed. Certainly true, but I must remind everyone that we are unfortunately limited in scope by the nature and context of our sources. As mentioned, the Devic Covenant, the Mekhanite Empire, and the Nalka peoples were at war with one another almost as soon as they become aware of one another when colonizing Central Asia. It is entirely possible, likely, even, that much of the writings of the period were more intended as religious propaganda than historical record. I would not take anything as gospel. Galenus, absolutely. The only other record we have is the Aegean tablets. Mr. Sheridan. Sheridan Arch, yeah. Yes. The section of the Aegean tablets we've translated so far, the one describing the Covenant, shares some broad strokes with the Mekhanite portrayal. Precursor to Tamil Indian empires in the same way the Mekhanites would later influence pre-Islamic Arabian empires. They go into detail about the magic of life referenced in the first tablet. Right now we're inclined to think it's some kind of thaumaturgy focusing on living tissue, particularly plant matter, but also probably other organic stuff. Anyway, you're all familiar with the creation myth relayed, but to sum it up, the first human tribes in India apparently were farther south, during a recession of the Indian Ocean. The leader of one of these tribes made some kind of deal with a spirit, a deva, to ally their societies into one. The titular Devic Covenant. Yijun, Ling, that's quite similar to the Mekhanite myth, isn't it? A god offering boons to a human society in exchange for service and worship? Galenus, it is. And, to their credit, both seem to agree that these gods were, somehow related. Yijun, Ling, part of a pantheon, most likely. Sheridan Arch, from there, it's more murky. It describes the construction of MAMJUL, but no idea what KORAR even is, if anything. It breaks from the Mekhanite dogma, referencing 4 gods at the start instead of 3. Something called the Wretch. I don't even know what the Deva are exactly, how they managed to bring down Amoni Ram, or how they relate to the Abominate. Galenus, There's a lot more questions than answers. I was hoping the city would clarify some of them, but, so far, all we've found are blank tablets and bones. Something bad happened here, but we don't know what. But, I think our time is just about done, so unless anyone has anything else. Desai. Pardon me. Galenus, RJ. What's up? Desai, you know, I'm no scientist. I'm sure you guys know what you're doing. But, I can't help but think you guys are kind of missing the forest for the trees, a little bit. Galenus, what? Desai, is no one else gonna say it? Pause. Desai, what kind of power does it take to sink an entire fucking continent? Silence. Galenus, I guess it's our job to find out, isn't it? Dismissed. End log. Over the following weeks, the trained coyote divers of MTF Gamma 6, Deep Feeders, Fireteam Khan, performed 13 dives into MAMJUL to explore the interior sections of the citadel, the city, and recover any artifacts or possibly relevant material. Dives were typically led by operator RJ Desai, Khan 1, and monitored by members of the research committee and a member of MTF Alpha 1. Addendum. Attached transcript excerpts, September 2002. Dive 1, nearby buildings. Khan 1, alright, we're at the bottom of the tower now. Going to exit through the passage into the city. Khan 2, God, this place gives me the creeps. Khan 4, relax. Nothing but crappy old ruins. Anything else would be crushed at this depth and pressure. Even sperm whales don't dive this deep. Khan 3, deep. Khan 1, no kidding. Team progresses through the passage. Command, remember, just scout out the buildings, the architecture near the citadel, and the interiors for anything of interest. You can split up to cover more ground, but don't stray too far from the citadel or each other. We don't want you guys getting lost. Khan 1, Roger, holy crap. The team exits out into the city streets. They are surrounded by the most intact of the buildings, reaching 6 or 7 stories high and cut entirely from intricately worked, stained gray stone. The flat avenue in front of them is littered with debris unseen by the submersible's cameras, including large amounts of bones half buried in the silt. Khan 3, impressive. Khan 2, this looks way bigger in person than it did from the sub's cameras. Command, anomalously so, Khan? Khan 2, no, number. Just, you know. Forced perspective. It's Khan 1, intimidating. Let's get moving. Don't go more than 2 or 3 buildings away in any direction. Khan 4, roger that. The team splits up, jetting off in various directions to explore the nearby portions of the city while conversing over the radio. Khan 1, I'm entering this one just outside the passage to the citadel. Goddamn, it's dark as shit. Command, Khan 1? Khan 1, hey, guys. Kill your lights for a second. Khan 4, boss. Khan 3, why? Khan 1, just do it. The members of Khan team disable the lamps on their coyote suits, plunging them into pure darkness. After several seconds, a soft greenish glow begins to form. Along the cracks and crevices of the buildings, some kind of moss begin to glow in the darkness, illuminating the surrounding area to a pale, sickly green light. Khan 2, whoa. Khan 3, what is it? Khan 2, looks to be a bioluminescent algae of some kind. Spread throughout the water, and collects in the corners of the buildings. But algae doesn't appear this deep, certainly not the kind that glows. It needs sunlight. These things shouldn't be alive. Khan 1, genetic engineering? Khan 2, I really can't say, Chief. Khan 1. Alright. Well, bag a sample. Khan 4. Shouldn't be hard, looks like it covers the entire damn city. Khan 1. These buildings are familiar looking. Khan 3. How so? Khan 1. I visited Cambodia a few years ago. Angkor Wat, a gigantic Buddhist temple complex all wrought from the same stone. Every wall covered and layered in intricate carvings of myths and legends. It feels like that. This place is drenched in religion. You can feel it in every crevice. Khan 2. But this place predates Angkor Wat by 3,000 years. Khan 1. Yup. The team continues exploring the surrounding buildings. As Khan 1 described, all buildings are reminiscent of Cambodia and general Southeast Asian architecture. Many of the buildings resemble temples in structure and form. Khan 1. Anyone find anything? Khan 3. Empty. Khan 2. This doesn't make sense. These would have been the largest and most impressive buildings, by proximity to the temple. Right? Khan 3. They should be. But there's nothing here, certainly nothing we can use. Khan 1. Just dust and blood. Dive 6. City streets. Khan team progresses through the open streets and avenues of MAMJUL, ignoring the standing structures and focusing on the layout of the city. They travel as a group in a diamond formation. They encounter several large pits in the place of buildings, carved with steps in the sides leading down. These pits contain water significantly darker than their surroundings. Khan 2. It looks like a stepwell. Khan 4. A what? Khan 2. A kind of ancient Indian reservoir. Basically a huge pit dug into the ground that would collect rainwater, then you'd walk down the steps to get it. No idea what's in there now, though. Khan 3. Geothermal activity? Khan 1. Unlikely in this part of the ocean. Take a sample, we'll analyze it. The team continues back out to the streets. In the southern third of the city, they float over large pathways leading to the citadel that are layered with bones. Khan 2. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of skeletons. Khan 3. Not all human. Khan 4. He's right, look at them. Some of these don't make any kind of sense. Khan 4 floats down and picks up a skull, dusting off the sand. Khan 4. Look at this. The skull is far denser than its appearance would suggest. The large cranium fans out into two horn-like protrusions, with a wide crest behind them. There are 3 eye sockets spread horizontally. Khan 2. That doesn't look human in the slightest. A lot of these look more like cattle than people. But even then, no cattle I've ever seen before. Khan 1. Cattle would make sense, anyway. These huge streets, Amoni Ram had them because they had all kinds of matches and bullshit, but judging by the size of some of these skulls, I think foot traffic was a lot bigger back then. Khan 3. Unharmed. 2. Khan 2. Yeah, that's been bothering me. A lot of these, there's no signs of breaking, trauma, they are hardly even damaged. So clearly a lot of these didn't die in battle. Whatever, something for the researchers to figure out. Let's keep moving. Dive 13, Citadel. The team has split in 2 groups to cover more ground as they explore the various levels of the massive citadel. Khan 1. Command. Still got a signal from us? Command. Loud and mostly clear. Khan 1. I'm still hearing that fucking noise. Is someone's radio on static? Khan 4. I don't hear anything else, boss. Khan 3. No. Command. Keep moving for now, Khan. Keep an eye on each other. Khan 2. Frankly, I don't think there's anything here for us to find. Command. Khan 1. Agreed. We've been scouring this place for hours now, working our way down. There's nothing. Khan 4. At least we were right about the name. It's a citadel. A cross between a fortress, a palace, and a temple. We've hit like 6 different battlements on our way and we're not even halfway down yet. Khan 2. There's an extensive system of rooms, but without furniture it's basically impossible to tell what they are intended for. They could be bedrooms or dungeons, there's just no way to know. But we've taken samples of the plant life, and I think that's all we can really do. Command. Khan 1? Khan 1, I'd like to check out the base floor. Then we can leave. Command. Affirmative. Let us know what you find. Khan team descends the remaining distance through the central passage to the ground floor of the citadel. Carefully maneuvering around the heaps of broken rubble, they turn on floodlamps, illuminating the space. It is dominated by 2 massive statues resting on a dais with an altar in the center of the space. They resemble the 2 largest figures on the carvings outside, one male in a headdress and armor, and an androgynous spirit inlaid with red jewels. They appear to be dancing. In front of them, a throne sits almost 2 meters off the ground, carved from what appears to be a single root of the tree. Several other statues with cupped hands decorate the space. Khan 1. Whoa. Khan 4. That is some spooky bullshit. Khan 2. Well, at least now we're sure it was a palace. Khan 1. And a temple. Look at the floor. The wood floor underneath them contains a similarly intricate series of wood symbols and lettering, spreading out in concentric circles from the altar. Khan 1. Wait. What is that? Khan 1 descends, approaching the altar, into which is embedded a dark object. On approach, it is clearly a knife of some kind. He pulls it from the wood, and it tumbles free. Khan 2. A ritual dagger. Look at the markings. Khan 4. Yeah, fuck that. Khan 1. I'll bag it. The rest of you, take some photos. Then let's get the fuck out of here. The other team members float through the throne room, taking video. Khan 2. Not seeing a whole lot. Most of these carvings have been rubbed away by the water. Khan 3. No other relics lying around, anyway. Upper floors were similarly empty. Khan 1. So the creepy dagger is the only thing of worth down here. Nice. Khan 4. Should we keep looking, RJ? Khan 1. Nah, let's head up. If there was anything material down here, we would have found it by now. Concurrently and following these dives, the samples recovered from MAMJUL were analyzed on site in the following weeks by the various sub-teams and personnel of the research committee, under the direction of Dr. Galenus. However, the limited array of samples and general lack of historical material to focus the historical and archaeological aspect of the investigation caused difficulty and a lack of actionable results. Addendum. Attached document, October 2002. From the desk of Dr. Pandora Galenus. MAMJUL KORAR Initiative. Personal thoughts on research progress. This hasn't quite worked out the way I'd hoped. I don't feel cheated, or bitter. Nobody could have predicted stuff like this, that the city would be nigh empty or that we'd be working from scraps. But it's still frustrating regardless. This was supposed to be my big break. I've enjoyed spending my time on the Lillehammer's crew, but I think everyone knew why I was there instead of climbing the ladder back at a real site. Relegated to the dustbin of history for something I didn't even do. I mean, I'm not stupid, I get it. They can't know for certain I had nothing to do with what happened in Amoni Ram. But it's still unfair. And then of all the ships in the world, I happen to be on the one that stumbles across MAMJUL. It's gotta be fate, I tell myself, and promise that I'll do the best I can to show them all that I'm not Bumero or Dr. Nussbaum. And now I have to go, tail between my legs, and tell the council that I don't have anything. Not even anything good, but nothing. Maybe they were right to keep me away from the real projects. I know it's not true, but goddamn if it doesn't feel like it right now. It just doesn't make sense, though. Nothing about this makes sense. Amoni Ram was a technological marvel. They were doing cold fusion in 1500 BCE. The only thing remotely anomalous about the Devic Covenant so far is the fact that they had strange plants. How was this war at all evenly matched? What did the Deva have that made the ancient Mekhanites so terrified of them? What is KORAR? What the hell happened here? We might even be able to answer that if we had anything left of records, writings, materials, artifacts, relics, anything. But there's nothing. It's as if the Deva have been wiped from history. It's infuriating. The research teams are demoralized. The divers are sick of going down to root around in old ruins and find nothing. The fact that their every move is constantly watched by armed men doesn't exactly help. I've had people coming to me and RJ for weeks with complaints of the MTF guys making it impossible for them to get any work done. But there's not much I can do without them thinking I've gone native. It's funny how many of my problems led back to Bumero despite never even meeting him. I don't know what to do. There's just so many questions that haven't been answered. All we know right now is a facsimile, a half-dreamt image of the Devic culture. A rich history of architecture, art, and dance that you can still see influences of in Indian and Cambodian culture. An almost religious reverence for nature, androgyny, and dreams. But also indications of cannibalism, ritual sacrifice, brutal slavery. And these are all just from what we've observed in the city. No one really knows anything about the Deva. If we just had some kind of guide. Try as I might not to, I keep returning to Bumero and Nussbaum, what they would have done. Though they did it for an abominable purpose, they were the only ones in the situation I'm in now. They were blockaded in their research until they found the preserver to help them understand. Conventional methods stopped working, so they looked for a guide, and found one. Except there aren't any guides left here. Or maybe I just need to broaden my horizons. A meeting between the project lead and O5-1 was scheduled for the 4th of October, using the secure Lee space communicator, to update the council on the initiative's progress. Addendum. Attached document, October 2002. Begin log. Operator, Lee connection to Sanctum 1 established. Dr. Galenus, O5-1 is waiting. Please step into the communicator. Galenus steps onto the circular metal platform. The Lee space activates, cycling through a number of locations before settling on a massive, open Broadway in an ancient desert city. The surrounding buildings are hewn from sandstone while gleaming bronze skyscrapers dominate the skyline. The sun rests high overhead. O5-1 stands a few meters away from Galenus. Galenus, wait, hold on, is this O5-1, Amoni Ram? Yes. The Lee space is a strange thing. I'm not very technical myself, but my understanding is that the communicator sends an encrypted signal through the Earth's latent Lee lines. Fast, doesn't need any infrastructure, and it's practically impossible to intercept unless you catch the signal as it's coming in. But it's magic, and it tends to respond to the moods and minds of the users. He gestures around. O5-1, and Amoni Ram has been weighing on my mind quite heavily as of late. Galenus, I figure it doesn't help that Buma Aram built this thing. O5-1, it doesn't, though he built a vast array of things, many of which we still use. And you can call him Bumero. It's what we've been doing ever since we last heard from him. He was no longer the man we hired, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not a man at all. Galenus, when was that? 05-1. Nearly 10 years ago, now. Our searches in the anomalous Nexuses for any sign of the Church of the Broken Gods location paid off. But things went poorly. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to divulge too many details. I'm sure you understand. Galenus, yeah, I get it, don't worry. Though, it's kind of hard not to, imagining someone that unhinged running around with that kind of power. One of the biggest threats we're facing. 05-1. I disagree. Galenus, wait, what? The council seemed. 05-1. I am not the council. My colleagues agree that Bumero is an existential danger to the Foundation, and so do I. But not for 1 second have I fallen under the delusion that he is insane or the biggest threat we face. Just the most present one. Galenus, you think he's, what, doing this for power? As a calculated move? 05-1, I think that. 05-1 sighs, and begins to walk down the Broadway. Galenus follows. 05-1, how old do you think I am, Dr. Galenus? Galenus, I don't really know. Galenus laughs. Galenus, it's kind of an open secret that you guys are long-lived. And you've been around for pretty much as long as anyone I've talked to can remember. But I get the sense that's not exactly what you were asking, right? 05-1, at once sobering and unsurprising. And correct. Galenus, then I'd say you look like a very good 80. Or a really bad 60. 05-1 stops in the street by a large power pole, looking upward. 05-1, I was born in a Roma camp in Wales in 1880. I was at Verdun, and Gallipoli, and the Somme. I lived through the war to end all wars, and another after that, not to mention the countless other conflicts scattered across Europe. I witnessed their hidden underbelly, the occult wars with their carnage left unseen and unknown by the world at large. Dying angels in no man's land, accursed weaponry and soldiers roused from the dead. I saw Robert Bumero in the last message he ever left for the Foundation, and his was not a face of Machiavellian scheming. His was a face I am unfortunately familiar with seeing and wearing, a man terrified, able to see the world sliding into another occult war, powerless to stop it. Galenus, oh. The pair resume walking down the street, passing sandstone buildings interlaced with feuillade. Minarets and spires jut out from the larger buildings, and the palace is visible in the distance. 05-1, apologies. I prefer to keep my thoughts on the matter to myself. But yes. I think that Bumero discovered something about the abominate, whatever it is, that shook him to his core. I've seen too many men die not to say that, as a young man, if I had known what I know now, I would have done anything to protect the ones I love. I simply disagree with him about the means. I think the Foundation remains the best, the only vanguard against such a threat. But I am sure the threat is coming. Galenus, that's a lot to take in. Fuck. Sorry. 05-1, quite alright. But now you see why we've taken this risk on the project, on you. Whatever the secrets of the Diva are, we need them now more than ever. Galenus, I know. But it's just worrying. 05-1, worrying? Galenus, it's a lot of pressure. I'm not the kind of person built for leadership, honestly. I can't help but wonder if you're not better off choosing someone else. 05-1, perhaps. But it doesn't really matter. Galenus, why? 05-1, because you're who we chose, for better or for worse. You'll either live up to the task, or you won't. For what it's worth, I think you're doing fine. Though your face tells me you come to me with bad news. Galenus, yes, I do. The project is stalled, for lack of a better word. I'm sorry, I know this must be disappointing, but 05-1, you don't have to apologize to me, Doctor. Galenus. I like you, and I do not consider your worth contingent on the success or failure of this mission as you seem to. Galenus. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that a lot, actually. 05-1 nods. 05-1, we're both historians. You remind me quite a lot of myself in younger years, in fact. Before I saw all the horrid depravity the world has to offer. You have the bright eyes of an optimist. Don't lose them. We shall need idealists in the Foundation in the times to come. But I digress. Apologies. Why is the project at a halt? Galenus, we just don't have anything to work from. There's almost no historical record, no analogous societies, no writings or sources. The most we've been able to do is work on analyzing the architecture and carvings throughout the city, but even that's limited because it's in far worse condition than. Galenus looks around at the recreation of Amoni Ram. Galenus, this. 05-1, I see. Do you have any idea what or where KORAR is so far? If they were sister cities, perhaps the other is better preserved, contains something we can actually use. Galenus, I'm afraid not, sir. I'm honestly not even sure it's a city at this point. We have ships scouring the other parts of the Indian Ocean on this sunken plateau, but 05-1, unfortunate. Well, tell me what you have learned. Galenus, the Devic Covenant were paradoxical. Like I said, about the only thing we can do is analyzing the murals, so that's what we've spent most of our time on. What we have is confusing. These people had an intense focus on the metaphysical and spiritual. Unsurprisingly, it seems like they were theocratic, given that the central citadel is both the temple and the palace, worshipping some entity or greater power called the Scarlet. 05-1, I've never heard of such a thing. Galenus, that makes two of us. At first I thought it would be a blood god, and that's what a lot of the research committee still thinks. 05-1, but you're not so sure. Galenus, no. I mean, it makes sense. They had a place for ritual human sacrifice in their society. They've got altars and obsidian knives and all kinds of carvings of people being split open to appease the diva spirits. But the depictions are different than I've seen in other Asian and Mesoamerican societies. It's a joyful affair, and the sacrifices seem almost as pleased as the diva are to welcome them. 05-1, I suppose it's hardly reasonable to think all societies would view death as final, especially given the exposure to necromancy the Aegean tablets suggest. Galenus, that's true, but I don't know. The depictions of the Scarlet are softer, more magnanimously indifferent than vengeful and demanding. Their art is complex, gentle and almost sensual. Their cities are magnificently constructed. But at the same time, we know from the Mekhanites that they had a vast slave system enforced by magic, and that their anomalies were at least in part fueled by sacrifices. The committee is a bit split on it, frankly. 05-1, interesting. Very interesting. But no indications as to what that magic was, exactly. Galenus, beyond something relating to horticulture, number. And similarly a lack of indications about their history as a society, including what happened to land them 2 miles underwater. The team doesn't know what to do. I feel like I've failed. 05-1, I wouldn't say that. You've done admirably, given the circumstances. It's just a difficult set of cards. Galenus, well, thank you, sir. But still, I feel like I've exhausted all our conventional options. 05-1. Then do what the Foundation has always done in times of adversity. Turn to the unconventional. Galenus, I thought about that. And I think I have an idea, but it's kind of out there. 05-1. I spent my 30s and 40s advising the various paranormal organizations in Europe how to arm themselves using their country's horrible, forgotten monsters and mythologies. Out there doesn't begin to faze me. What's your idea? Galenus, I'm going to need someone transferred to MKF-01. Someone who was involved in the original Amoni Ram initiative. End log. Attached transcript, October 2002. Interviewer, Dr. Pandora Galenus. Subject, SCP-1867, Lord Theodore Thomas Blackwood. Begin log. Galenus, hello, Lord Blackwood. SCP-1867, greetings. Galenus, I hope the trip wasn't too much trouble. SCP-1867, not at all, not at all. Quite comfortable. Galenus, excellent. My name is Pandora Galenus, I'm a researcher at the Parahistory Division. SCP-1867, I've always had such pleasant interactions with you Parahistory fellows, though I'm admittedly not quite sure what that moniker means. History is history, isn't it? Regardless, good times. There was a fair-haired woman from your department who used to interview me quite often, a Dr. Nussbaum. Would you happen to know her? Galenus, Dr. Nussbaum? She's no longer employed by the Foundation. Sorry. SCP-1867, shame. I quite liked her. Galenus, yeah, well, she's kind of why I wanted to speak with you today. I've been going over some of the old files from her project, and I came across something that was written in one of your adventure diaries that I was hoping you could shed a little light on. SCP-1867, it's been many years since I wrote those. Practically a different man now. But I shall dredge what you seek from the river Lethe. Galenus, much appreciated. I believe it's Diary 57, you mentioned the expedition of an acquaintance of yours, Viswamitra Thakur, into the Indian Ocean in search of undersea ruins. SCP-1867 stares blankly. Galenus, also known as Captain Nemo. SCP-1867, well, you should have said so, goodness gracious. Yes, I remember. Though, calling Nemo an acquaintance of mine is much like calling the Sicilian sea beast an acquaintance of the Tahinian sailors, if you glean my meaning. Galenus, not really, but I get that you two weren't fond of each other. SCP-1867, I had no quarrel with the man. Quite the contrary, in fact, I admired his can-do attitude and breadth of inventions to support his adventuring. I had the pleasure of witnessing the Nautilus surface once. Galenus, his submarine. SCP-1867, a technological marvel the likes of which the world may never see again. The submarine was longer than many ships, and seemed natural, appearing as though carved from a single titanic block of jungle wood but filled with engines, armor, and livery. Galenus, that's oddly familiar. Did you ever go inside? SCP-1867, if only. I should have liked to take tea with the good captain one evening to pick his mind, but he would have none of it. Galenus, why? SCP-1867, He had a deep-seated resentment in his heart for all Englishmen. I have never been particularly attached to my homeland, finding more solace in darkest Peru than I do in Durham. But Nemo was of Indian descent, and held a chip in his shoulder over the Crown's dominion over his land. He felt that every well-born individual who had benefited from the plundering of his homeland deserved nothing but scorn at the best. Which is why my polite offers to accompany his vessel to these purported Atlantean ruins were met with stony silence. Gallinus, yeah, it says you were unable to go, but that you knew some who had gone, and heard word months later. SCP-1867, that I did. My few contacts aboard the ship were unable to provide me much, fearing Nemo's rage. But I was told that they had found something far south of India on the seabed. Gallinus, that lines up with what we know, yeah. SCP-1867, the specifics were murky at best, but through the grapevine it was whispered to me that some of the men spiritually inclined men under Nemo's command had returned from the expedition shaken and disturbed. To a normal man, this may have meant nothing. But having studied with the Caster Monastery on the slopes of Makalu, it was clear to me that Nemo had them doing the art of projection. Gallinus, I'm sorry, the art of what? SCP-1867, with intense practice, meditation, and no small amount of psychotropic assistance, it is possible to enter into a fugue of sorts, during which the soul may depart the body and enter into the astral plane. The Caster monks have spent centuries studying the existence of the astral plane and the vast mysteries contained therein, and have ascertained that it is a manner of reality blanketing our own, invisible to the naked eye but interweaving with all parts of daily life. Inhabited by Gallinus, spirits? SCP-1867. Quite right. Sharp one, you are. I like you. Gallinus, appreciated. But I don't understand the relevance of this to I'm sorry, Captain Nemo's expedition. SCP-1867. The nature of the astral plane is such that it is at once a reflection and a cause of our own material plane. Significant people, events, and even places can leave impacts and connections that persist long after the destruction of the physical form. The presence of poltergeists and jinns are a common example. But I digress. My theory is that Nemo, possessing no gift for the metaphysical arts himself but being the cunning fox that he was, attempted to use his crew to astral project and discover the secrets of the Atlanteans. Of course his crew, being largely unrefined brutes, lacked the necessary finesse. Gallinus, and you elected to step in? SCP-1867. I would have, and even began building a crew for the voyage. But only a month after this news came to my ears, another delectable piece of information caught my eye. Vladimir Zolat had initiated a call to arms. For a common vampire had been sighted east of the Ural Mountains for the first time in more than 3 centuries. I could not miss out on the opportunity, and Atlantis, like so many projects, fell to the wayside. I always intended to pick it back up, but somehow I can no longer muster the energy. SCP-1867 wriggles. Gallinus, that's a real shame. I bet you would like to see it, SCP-1867. Quite. To see if the legends are true of monumental towers powered by light and glass, of great sea beasts bound into service, of bare-breasted tribal queens ruling with an iron fist, of Gallinus. Well, it shouldn't surprise you to learn that the Foundation has an interest in Atlantis. Though you should probably know now that its proper name is MAMJUL. We've located the ruins, but there's not much to see. After being stalled for a few months, I recently went over the records of the first person to discover Amoni Ram, and noticed the references to some kind of psychic detachment. If you're prepared to share your knowledge of astral projection, I could probably convince my superiors to allow you to be on the first team. SCP-1867 is silent for several seconds, apparently contemplating. SCP-1867. Very well. I, Lord Thomas Theodore Blackwood, Earl of Northumbria, will assist you in your endeavor. Together, we shall unlock the mysteries of Atlantis. Gallinus, MAMJUL. SCP-1867. Yes, that. Join me, we shall toast. Gallinus. Appreciated, but I don't drink. My people will come collect you in the morning, Lord Blackwood. I look forward to working together. End log. Section 1.4. Omicron Rho. SCP-1867 was securely transported to MKF-01 on the FCS Hafkeen cargo vessel, along with a number of supplies, equipment, and a detachment of personnel from the Psychotronics Division at Site 19. The Hafkeen docked with the Phantom and Lillehammer as part of MKF-01 on the 12th of October, and Psychotronics Division personnel quickly set up an ad hoc lab and working center under the direction of Dr. Gallinus and senior researcher Ada Crowley, with input from SCP-1867. Over the following month, almost every member of the MAMJUL KORAR initiative was subjected to a gauntlet of tests to determine their psychic potential. Those with the highest scores and sufficiently high cognitohazard resistance values were inducted into a provisional applied task force, Omicron Rho, Dream Team. By mid-November, of the 87 members of the MAMJUL KORAR initiative, 9 had been inducted into ATF Omicron Rho, including Lieutenant Lucian Graves, Operator R.J. Desai, and Dr. Pandora Gallinus. Foundation research into extrasensory perception had exploded since 1944 with the founding of the Psychotronics Division, and provided several advances, such as low telepathy, scrying, and limited divination, that were routinely used in various sectors of Foundation operations by 1971. Though true astral projection remained out of reach. With the assistance of SCP-1867's expertise on the matter, Psychotronics Division personnel were able to train members of ATF Omicron Rho into being able to induce a fugue state that SCP-1867 affirmed would result in successful astral projection if performed under the influence of nestic drugs. Additionally, O5-1 requisitioned the LSAP Cadmus Erum Deep Brain Oniric Parietal Stimulation and Recording Array, a one-of-a-kind prototype mechanism constructed by Dr. Hadley Cadmus and Dr. Robert Arum, when the latter was still employed by the Foundation for the Paratechnology Department. The device consisted of 2 separate portions. A medical implant of several electrodes inserted into brain tissue, leading out to a wire through the nape of the neck, and a computerized system to which the wire would be connected. The implant would stimulate brain tissue to produce a heightened state of awareness during dreams, and the computer would record sensations and visuals to produce as text. The text would require additional human processing, but the final product was a largely accurate transcription of what the subject says and does, including while dreaming. The device, tested prior by the Psychotronics Division and confirmed safe, was implanted into Lieutenant Lucian Graves to serve as an indisputable, impartial record of what was discovered for Council records, in compliance with O5 Edict No. 2050. Following the operation and his 2-week recovery at Site 12, Graves returned to MKF-01 in preparation for the first attempt at astrally projecting into MAMJUL, performed on the 20th of December, 2002. Addendum. Attached transcript, December 2002. For the first projection test, SCP-1867 and 4 members of ATF Omicron Rho were selected. Dr. Pandora Gallinus, Sword 1. Lieutenant. Lucian Graves Sword 2. OPR. RJ Desai, Sword 3. OPR. Sarah Morello, Sword 4. SCP-1867 alias Lord Blackwood Sword 5. All members of Sword Team were given medical and neurological workups before entering into a secure padded containment chamber aboard the Phantom. They were seated in restrained reclining medical chairs with various instruments attached to the sides, leading to displays of neurological activity, heart rate, and similar readouts. IVs of Class W nestics were inserted into the arms of all personnel, barring SCP-1867, who had a small amount mixed into the bowl of seawater in which it was placed. Psychotronics Division personnel administered sedatives and muscle relaxants to members of the team as SCP-1867 began the test. Note: as this transcript was originally produced by Lieutenant Graves' thoughts, certain sections may be non-clinical. Begin log. SCP-1867. Is everyone in attendance prepared? Hart and Hardy? Gallinus: yes. Well, mostly. Desai: close enough. Lieutenant Greaves and OPR. Morello nod. SCP-1867. Excellent. Everyone should be familiar with this by now, but in the interest of nerves and, I'm sure, your organization's records. SCP-1867 turns its head to the observation window, through which several initiative personnel are taking notes. SCP-1867. I will guide you through the process. Before we begin, remember that excess stress will wake you from the state. This may prove a boon or a burden, depending on what we encounter. Use the knowledge wisely. Now, while all medications and chemical assistances are provided, let us close our eyes and relax. Allow your muscles to slacken, your eyelids to flutter shut naturally. Open your mouth and allow your lungs to loosen and breathe simply and naturally. Consider your place in the universe, members of your various homelands and their governments, members of your families, members of the Foundation. Psychotronics Division personnel go around, injecting each member of Sword Team with a sedative as SCP-1867 speaks. SCP-1867. Now consider your physical place. You are floating aboard a great ship, leagues off the southern tip of India. At the same time, you are floating leagues above the ruins of an ancient civilization. Your position is relative. You may change it, as you please, and the world will change accordingly. The plane of our existence you see is simply one more axis of position. Alterable, mutable. Think about it. Consider it. There is no reason you should not be able to change it as easily as one can walk from one end of the ship to the other. Imagine yourself doing so. Leaving that which is physical behind, entering something purer. Allow yourself to walk from the bow to the bridge, along the gunwales of the vessel. It is a familiar path. The sea to your left, the metal of the ship to your right. Your body relaxes as you continue down the path, until finally arriving at the stern. As far as you can see, there is only the ocean. There is no response from Sword Team, aside from soft breathing. SCP-1867. Now open your eyes. Greaves opens his eyes, revealing himself standing in an alien landscape. There is no clear sky or ground. Instead, auroras of strobing lights fill the space above, beyond them only blackness and occasional flashes of lightning. Greaves is standing on a patch of viridian grass, a meter wide. Beyond the edges of this small patch, dotted reddish-pink stars seem to stretch on forever downward into the abyss of the plain. Some kind of fog or mist blankets the ground, rising up to his knee. There is only Greaves, the grass, and the emptiness. Gallinus: hey. Greaves turns. Galenus, dressed in their lab coat, is standing at a distance, perhaps 50 meters. Greaves takes an unsteady step forward, planting his foot down. He is instantly a meter away from Galenus, who reflexively steps back, tightening their lab coat. Greaves, whoa. Galenus, that's disorienting. Where on earth are we? Greaves, hopefully, the astral plane. Do you see any of the others? Galenus, no, but listen. Greaves, what is it? Galenus, no, listen. They fall silent. A moment later, a distant chanting becomes audible for several seconds, accompanied by the pounding of war drums. The howling accompanying them drifts along the non-existent wind to the pair. They turn, and in the distance lies some sort of stone structure, obscured by a vast collection of tall trees. Greaves, that sounds remarkably similar to the whispering noise in MAMJUL me and Operator Desai kept hearing. Seems like something worth investigating. Galenus, hey, hold up. We need to wait for the others. Greaves, we don't know how things work here. If we're in the same astral space, or if they're ahead of us. Galenus, just wait a couple of minutes, okay? Galenus and Greaves stand around for several minutes, inspecting their surroundings. No one appears. Greaves, with any luck, they're already there and we're the stragglers. Galenus, yeah. Maybe. But if they're not there, we're turning back. Greaves and Galenus begin to make their way through the fog towards the strange structure. Periodically, lightning flashes across the horizon, bathing everything in a sickly green glow. As they continue on, the chants and drumbeats grow louder, more intense. A chorus can be heard vocalizing along, in a language neither understand but both feel. They walk for what feels like hours, but the structure only grows slightly closer. For a moment, they stop. Galenus, wait, is that? Out of the fog and mist, a silhouette of a group of figures emerge. Desai, Morello, and an unknown yet familiar figure step out. The third is an older gentleman dressed in a waistcoat, trousers, and boots with spats. A derby cap sits atop his brown-haired head, laden with a boyish grin despite his age. Desai, hey, Dora. Galenus, RJ. And Lord Blackwood. SCP-1867. Quite right. Welcome to the astral plane, my friends and motley companions. Disorienting, isn't it? Greaves, I've seen worse. SCP-1867. Yes, well, careful not to think yourself into the abyss. Quite an ugly fate, that would be. Hardly a body left to bury. Onwards. Desai, onwards where? Galenus, I'd bet, that thing, in the distance. Morello, castle? Desai, looks that way. Or a fortress or something. Hell of a tree line, though. And that noise sounds. Galenus, the whispering you guys heard in the ruins. Desai, yeah. Probably time to head there, then. Extraneous chatter clipped for brevity. Sword team finally begins to approach the structure, passing through a line of impossibly tall, broad-leafed jungle trees. Vines hang from the canopy high above and shrubbery layers the ground. The growth is thick, but the trees and undergrowth seem to shift, making way for the group's march forward. Desai, how welcoming. Greaves, be on alert. Morello, trees this tall don't exist on Earth. These have to be 500 feet, at least. Holy hell. All the while, the chanting and drumming and singing grow in pitch and intensity. SCP-1867, how strange. I've not heard anything quite like this. It sounds Galenous. Primal. The group suddenly breaks through the tree line, finding themselves face to face with a massive wall, constructed of massive blocks of stone carved into shape. On the battlements, unclear figures peer over. The surface of the stone is alive with pulsating stars, moving in tune with the song. A huge archway dominates, through which a great door is ever so slowly opening. Galenous. Holy fuck. The door completely opens. The ground in this portion of the plain is layered over with dirt and soil, and the group walks through the doorway. They are in a massive, intact city, temple-like buildings rising 4 stories in all directions. In the far distance, at the center of the city and at the end of the long avenue on which they currently stand, the topmost portion of a huge tree can be seen, its branches spreading atop the sky. The chanting and drumbeats are louder than ever, and in every direction there is bacchanalian celebration. Huge figures fill the city shoulder to shoulder, engaged in revelry. The entities vary in shape and appearance, but all are tall, in excess of 3 meters. They have pale mint skin, long curling horns sitting atop their foreheads, and digitigrade legs. They drink, dance in intricate patterns, and sing their chanting harmony in tune with the huge drums. However, they leave the main Broadway entirely empty for the group to walk through, looking at them. Greaves. What? Desai. Look at the buildings. It's like MAMJUL, but Morello, alive. Galenous. Yeah. The diva never died out. The Covenant just did. The city resembles the Southeast Asian architecture of MAMJUL, but raised to an inhuman standard. Buildings and temples that could only be 3 or 4 stories shoot into the distance, craning the neck. The branches of the great tree are carved with living spaces and dotted with yet more diva engaged in revelry. The carvings adorning every surface and building dance in time with the great song, coming from everywhere around them. Desai. Where do we go? Galenous. Look. They are telling us. The crowd seems to move and thrum with a life of its own. As the group watches, the communal dance pulses every entity in sight forward, towards the citadel tree in the center of the city. Drawn along, the group is pulled forward, down the Broadway, towards the citadel. As they move through the great streets of the city, the grander it becomes. The plain gray stone of MAMJUL has been painted over with bright, resplendent shades of reds, purples, and gold trimming. The tall horned diva's green skin makes a sharp contrast against the warm buildings they occupy. The raucous wildness only increases in intensity, many of the entities openly engaged in intoxicated, violent combat. In the distance, over the city's rooftops, gigantic beasts of burden almost as tall as the trees slowly move across the skyline on hundreds of legs. Greaves. Where are we going? Galenous. I don't know. The movements and lapping of the crowd gently push the group forward, but not aggressively. Many of the diva are joyous at the sight of them, clasping their hands and raising them before letting them go. Eventually, they arrive at the entrance to the tunnel leading into the citadel. The drumming and loudest singing can be heard from inside, and they progress in. Where the tunnel in MAMJUL was filled with carvings, living diva line the passage here, beating fists against the stone wood walls in song. The group exits out into the throne room. It contains 2 thrones, both carved from the same titanic vein of wood. On the left sits a human corpse, features made indiscernible by its age. It is dressed in elaborate finery and a wreath. The throne on the right is occupied by a female diva in similarly elaborate dress, leading the song encompassing the entire city. The tree is open overhead, the lightning and auroras visible through the canopy of leaves. Other robed diva fill the various landings of the citadel. SCP-1867. This is not what I expected when you described this MAMJUL. Desai. Yeah, this isn't MAMJUL. As the group enters, the diva sitting on the throne breaks off from the omnipresent song and slowly descends the staircase. The others continue unabated as she enters into a deep bow. She speaks in a language not heard by human ears in 3 millennia, but is understood perfectly. Rajmata, no. Welcome to KORAR, eternal city of the diva, seat of the slumbering Maharaja, the Scarlet City. My name is Rajmata Vaslara Siraj Shirat, Empress Consort of the Forlorn Covenant. Welcome back. End log.